Julius Caesar.
Huh?
Caesar.
Julius Caesar, excellent. Seneca, Jesus Christ. So all the names that I just said, put them on one side, and let's put Rama and Krishna, but we'll focus only on Krishna on the other side. If I ask you, who do you think has more archaeology evidence? This one group that occurred relatively speaking, say 2000 years ago, and the other group, or just take Bhagwan Krishna, more than 7500 years ago. What is your intuition? Who has more archaeology evidence?
I'm speaking to Nilesh Oak. So obviously the weighing scale is tilted towards Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Right. So when it comes to evidence, there is no archaeology evidence, zero archaeology evidence for Jesus Christ, Alexander, Panini, Kalidas, and so on. In comparison, if you look at Krishna, and we'll talk about this, there is a tremendous evidence. Like there is a celestial evidence, that is also archaeology evidence. Because think of it, on the ground, you can actually, if somebody wants to play games, they can mismatch the evidence, they can hide certain evidence that is actually found. You cannot do that with the celestial evidence. That evidence is there in the books. People did not understand it, but through reverence, they just remembered it for hundreds and thousands of years. They did not even understand it. Now, with the help of modern science, we look at it and bingo, we can actually find an event that just happened only 7500 years ago. It did not happen since, and even if you go back, it did not happen for another 10,000 years. This is, in science we call it crucial evidence, which leads to crucial experiments. That's the kind of evidence we are looking for, and we'll talk about the modern examples.
Let's do a bit of a recap about what we did on the previous episodes.
Great idea.
So I remember there was a lot of celestial evidence talk in those as well. There was a lot of terrestrial evidence talk in those as well. So for terrestrial, you actually pulled out Valmiki's Ramayana, pulled out certain shlokas, and then tied it into what we see even in the modern day. For example, that South America connection of Ramayana, which has still blown my mind. Like I still think about that particular facet, and I highly recommend that everyone check out those episodes before checking out this one, unless you're very obsessed with Shri Krishna, which is alright, we'll keep watching. The second thing you spoke about was the exact dating of the Mahabharata, which was
5561 BCE, so 7584 or 85 now years ago.
You know, this is how I describe you to my friends who've not seen those episodes, that you've picked out these two exact dates of the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, and how all the rest of your work is actually built out around that, and you're constantly finding more and more evidence which backs your findings.
Yes.
So, do you want to cover any aspect from the last episode, just as a bit of a recap for people who probably not going to see those episodes now?
Okay.
Or for people who've not seen it right now and want to continue watching this.
Right. Well, they should watch this, but I'm confident once they watch this, they will feel like going back and watching those other two. We can take a segue from last time, which is we discuss Krishna's Dwarka and is getting flooded and destroyed by sea rising waters, right? So Krishna, in the scheme of avatarhood, like avatar of Vishnu's, Krishna is considered the 8th avatar. But Krishna was a historical person who lived literally in the blood and flesh and bones 7500 years ago, approximately, exactly same time as Mahabharata. He's one of the key characters in Mahabharata. Interestingly, in the entire story of Mahabharata, now Mahabharata is the longest epic of humanity. Just to give an idea, how big is Mahabharata? Many people, especially around the world, know of the Greek epics, Iliad and Odyssey. If you combine Iliad and Odyssey in terms of the volume, multiply that by 8 times, that's what Mahabharata is, about 100,000 shlok or 125,000 shlok, especially if you add the appendix, Khila Parva, called Hari Vansha. The Hari Vansha literally means what? The genealogy of Hari, namely Krishna. So the idea is, in Mahabharata, Krishna comes relatively speaking late. In fact, Krishna is related to Pandava brothers. So Kunti is Bua of Krishna. The first time face to face Pandava brothers and Krishna meet is when they are 33 years old. And do you know the instance when they met? That is Draupadi Swayamvar, when Pandavas are getting married to Draupadi. That is the first time they meet. So in that sense, lot of has already has happened to Pandavas. So lot of things have gone by. So Krishna in a way enters late. Then of course the Pandavas are married to Draupadi, so Krishna is in connection with them. Then Pandavas rule for some time. Then they go to Vanvas, the forest. Krishna is along with them. I mean, he's not gone there, but he's always there supporting. And then after 14 years, the actually Mahabharata Yuddha takes place. Krishna is with them, since then. But he comes on the scene very late. Krishna is also a very strategic, like a statecraft character from a Pandava side in basically this whole game of a Mahabharata. So he is very important for that. But let me fast forward. After the Mahabharata war is over, they do some yajna, like Ashwamedha yajna again. After that, Krishna returns to Dwarka and so on. 36 years go by. And that's when we start talking of Krishna's biography, which is flooding and destruction of Krishna's Dwarka. That is the exact time when Krishna passed away. But what is interesting is, once that was done, and Vyasadeva wrote Mahabharata about 18 years after the Mahabharata war. But after that Mahabharata was written, Vyasadeva, the writer of Mahabharata, and his team, they did not feel happy. They felt like something is missing. And that something is missing, they said, look, Krishna is such an important character in this, but he felt, although there is enough of information about Krishna, the whole Bhagavad Gita and whatnot, there is a Anu Gita, multiple Gitas by Krishna in Mahabharata, he felt he has not written enough about Krishna. Therefore, Vyasadeva sat down, maybe with his disciples, to write down the appendix, Harivamsha. Very interesting. After finishing Harivamsha, he felt, yeah, I did some justice, but not enough. So then he sat down to write Srimad Bhagavad Puran. And again, Bhagavad Puran, it goes back into deep antiquity, but it ends with the describing the pastimes, glories, and activities of Krishna.
When you're taught about Krishna in the modern day, people view Krishna as being equal to God, the ultimate God. I think most Westerners have heard about the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the core books of Hinduism, and it's effectively a life manual in terms of helping with your everyday life and your everyday life problems and your own psychology and your spiritual growth. The Bhagavad Gita was actually recited by Krishna to one of the key warriors in the war, Arjun, right before the war, because Arjun was in a moral dilemma about right versus more right or wrong versus more wrong. As kids, when we taught about Krishna's whole life, he was born in prison.
Yes.
His uncle from his mother's side wanted to kill him because there was a prophecy that the uncle would have been killed by the mother's eighth child. So the child that's born is effectively, I don't like using